Welcome back, everyone. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick variation on the lid. As I mentioned in the previous tutorials, there I go for focus. You can follow that earring tutorial, the beginning of it, and you could create, a basic spiral, and then you can use a little bit of wire and design your own little tree like I did here. With the exception of I'm using 18 gauge round wire, and I'm using 18 inches of it here for this lid. So here's my little lid I want to make for my locket, and I've got it about the size that I want it. And so now I'm going to go ahead and tie off the rest of my branches here. And I'll just use a plier. And I just want to get 1 or 2 rounds because I'm going to go around this again, this whole thing with 28 and make a couple of spirals around. So I'll just do that. Change my camera so you can see it a little bit better. Okay. So now that I've got this spiral the size that I want it, I'm just going to do a couple of ties, get my branches on here, and again you can watch that other tutorial to see how to make the tree if you want to, but I think you guys get the idea. You just sculpt. You can put on any kind of tree. I'm using 28 gauge wire. It makes a very fine tree, but you could use 26 gauge wire. I'm using about 20 strands of this 28 gauge wire, and they're about 5 inches long each, and I just twisted them up into a tiny little tree that I attached onto my spiral after I made my spiral. I'm just going to attach here. So I'm just basically picking it up where the tutorial left you off right here and had you attach the tree. There's lots of methods of making trees. And again, if you use 26 gauge wire, you could use less wire. Oh, falling away a little bit there. Maybe you use eight strands of 26 gauge, and you make a tiny little tree here on your 1-inch spiral. I'll get these 2 tied on, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut everything off, and I could save myself some time. I'm just trimming these away so that I can roll these back. I'm leaving just a smidge right here so I can literally just roll it back, or in this case even pinch it back with my fingers. We can give it all a pinch with our pliers and make it stay. We're going to go over it with more wire as we coil past, so it'll help us hold all of these ends in, so you don't have to worry about them. Just get them back as neatly as possible. And even though in the earring tutorial, I say to go ahead and put these little springtime beads on it, you don't have to put any beads on here. You can just make a little tree like this, and you can show what's inside the box through this whole little window frame. Nothing says you have to put beads on there. So since this is our fall tree, our harvest moon tree, I'm going to leave it just like this and have a little surprise for you when we put it on the box. Okay, so like I said, if you follow the earring tutorial, it's leading you into making this one. And you'll just sculpt your tree, and then you can either leave it bare or you can put some berries on it. For mine, I'm going to leave it bare. So now I'm going to get another 2 feet of 28 gauge. Actually, I'm going to get 2 feet of 26 gauge copper wire. So since a couple of you mentioned that all you had was 26 gauge copper wire and not 28 gauge, I'm going to do these 2 outer rings in 26 gauge so we can see how that works for you, and I'll try to help you out. So I like to coil with my right hand, so this is the front, but I'm going to go ahead and flip it to the back here and handle it just the way that I handled the rest of my basket coil. And I'm just going to slip my wire in here with the leading 1 inch, and I'm going to work in the same way that we worked yesterday with our locket, but I'm just going to do this around my tree and catch these little ends as I pass by. So I'll start with a couple of them there. Let's anchor it with a couple right there. This wire's a little stiffer, even though it's only 1 gauge bigger. So you just work with it with some patience, but handle it in the same way. Make sure that we still have that little space. We still need that. So I put a couple right there to give me space. I might do maybe 10 of these and then put a couple of single ones to maintain that space. And again, you just have to be careful about not pulling too tightly. For those of you who know how to weave, you could even just weave this out, right? Do a little pattern. So I'll make 4 of them right there. I'll slip back into a couple of single ones right here. I actually like the way the single ones look a little bit better, so I might just go ahead and continue with single ones and then do 4 at the end. So I changed my mind yet again. You can do whatever you like. So it's a little bit thicker, so each one has to be pushed back, you know. But pretty much we were doing that with the other one with 28 gauge also, so this will give us a nice substantial look. It gives us certainly a harder frame. So if you're doing these open spaces like this, 26 gauge might be the way to go. It does move along faster because it's bigger wire, so you'll make the distance quicker than you will with 28 gauge, so that's a benefit to working with this. It moves along a little faster. Getting in between each of these coils will be a little more difficult, but not impossible. Not with our handy needle. So since this is 26 gauge, you're probably going to have to tap it now and again to keep these wider segments when you go over two of them. Just tap them like that. And I'll just take this end and grab a couple there on my other going around. Anyway, and then I'm going to do singles all the way across this one to the other side. Make sure you got room to get in there. It's okay if it's a little bit tight. You don't have to do singles. You could also crawl over some of your tree roots. Ooh, that's pretty tight. That's okay. That's good enough there. So I'll do a few. It's up to you what you want to do. But ultimately, this thing needs to end up round for your lid. So you just do like that and kind of press back up. So you can, you see that it can go back into shape. Maybe when you do yours, you don't leave such big tree roots like I did. You can shave some of that off and leave it thinner. I didn't have my cutter, so I kind of just glommed it all on there. It'll look nice, and so if I need to come over these tree roots at all, I can. Or if I want to add something decorative while I'm passing by, like a couple of beads or something, I can do that. Okay, we'll see what I do here in a minute. But remember, when you're adding on your tree, this doesn't need to be so many roots, so it's a little easier to catch it. And I'm just going to do 4 over here since I did 4 over there. Remember to keep that space. Doesn't have to be totally the same as the other side. When you feel like you've gotten to a place where you can make, I'm just going to make this one like the other side because that's the top of this one, and then it's just going to be random across there. So I'll do 4 right here. And it's okay if you have a little bump here, because remember that the hinge is going up here. And so right here is going to be the little lip to the lid. So it's okay. You know, mine has a small downward kind of little bump, and that looks pretty good. I like the way it's traveling around. By the time we get around, we'll see, you know, where we are. We could probably put the hinge right here, but I like to put it on the second time around just to make sure that, you know, you've got some stability up there. Okay, so keep working. Go ahead and try to end it by wrapping a couple of times in these little messier wires right here. I mean, once into there. And then I'll go a couple of times right here. Then I'm going to start my fresh wire. Ooh. Let me flip it over and see how we're looking. I love that. So I'm going to go one more time around. Again, this is, you know, my 0 point would kind of be right here, opposite my tip. I did my tree upside down, but that's okay. So this is where my hinge is going to go, is right here on top, at the top of my tree. Right when you get to about the middle bottom, in my case, I have a little bump here where the tree roots come out, and where my point is, I'm going to make that little lip, which is basically like making a prong. So I'll probably tie in one more when I get a little closer. I might just mark right about here. That's where that goes. So right about here I'll tie in. And this is pretty strong wire, so one is enough. I might do another wrap, I'm not sure. I think so, one more. And then I'll go ahead make one more around here, and then let's get our pliers. Keep your finger right here and just make a straight bend up. Get the plier out to help you make that a little sharper. And if you need to use your board, you can come down here align the center. Make sure that your sides are aligned, and then you can figure out that you're at the bottom center, and you can mark your top center while you're here. There's my bottom center. And I'll just go ahead and make this about 3 millimeter or 4 millimeter long. Flatten it out. Whoop. Work to bring these together. If you have flat nose pliers, it's a lot easier. Once you get that, you can hold it. Once you get that, make sure that you're nice and straight. You can align to your center mark up here. And then either take your plier, it's a little bit hard to hold it to get some leverage, but get right here on this edge. Take a nice, don't push, don't pull, just take a nice steady bend. You're kind of counter pushing this way as you bend to the right, so you're giving backward pressure as you bend to the right to stay straight. Just get a nice slope and align with the wire again, your frame wire. Just make sure that this guy is pretty much straight, and that looks good. So I can take my wrap wire now and just go through the tree roots, even if I go into the opposite direction. And work myself to the other side where I can continue my wrap. Just like that. Come back through the middle. Since this is the front, double check it and make sure you come through attractively. That looks pretty good. Give yourself a little space. And just work until you get over there. I might go another wrap right into the roots right here. Get a little closer. And then jump onto this side right here. Just be real careful for your finger. Don't poke yourself as you're making space to come through with the wire. This is my front. That looks pretty good. So I'll keep wrapping. When I come to the top, I'm going to stop right about here. Since this is top center, I want to be just off to the left and just off to the right of it when I make my coil. So for my hinge, so I'll stop just before it. Okay, so I weaved up to here. I stopped probably about 3 millimeter, maybe, yeah, about 3 millimeter, maybe 4, away from my center mark. I'm going to go ahead and wrap to the previous spiral. 26 gauge is proving to work quite well. It's a little harder on my hand muscles, but if your hands can take it, I think 26 gauge would work out quite well. You just do the exact same things, use the exact same care. You know, bring this straight on so that you can snap in for sure. It's harder to snap in if you're at a slant, but otherwise it works out pretty well. So anyway, there I go for one of the wraps next to my center. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap through twice and kind of reinforce it there a little bit since it'll be my coil. And you don't have to make your coil 8 little rounds, or your hinge 8 little rounds. You can go 5, you can go 6, you can go whatever you want. You just can't go too long, because if you make it longer than the curve, if it curves, then it doesn't open correctly. But you could go 8 or less. So I've wrapped twice just for some reinforcement. I'm going to wrap once right here. I'm going to turn this entire thing horizontal. Just hold it right here. Just bring the wire straight up. So that I'm horizontal, so that I'm evenly horizontal across there. And then I'll take my little you could use a 16 gauge wire as well if you have 16 gauge wire. So I'll hold my dowel like this. I'm going to just turn this perpendicular, and I'm going to make a nice tight coil. I'm going to go 7 times. There's 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. While it's on here, get your nylon jaw and straighten out all this wire right here that we just gripped and probably munched up. While it's on the dowel, it's a little easier. You got something holding it already. So we'll just take it off the dowel now. You might have to tap this little end right there. Straighten out your hinge by putting it all together there. Remember, this is the inside. And so now right here, let's just lay the hinge down. You might have to finesse it a little bit, but you're going to turn it this way so that this wire ends up and this wire just gives you a nice spring right there. And that should be about in the middle of your stuff. If you can end with this wire down here, I always miss it somehow. It's okay. Just put my dowel back in there. Turn it. One more time right to here. It's a little easier on you because then it's already next to this wire. You just got to upturn and get it in there. So right here. Ooh, it's a little tight. Plus I'm trying to work underneath the camera always. Just going to take it about the same couple of millimeter. Try not to slip. And turn it out. Shape it back. Get it lined right back up with your lid. Look to the front. Make sure it looks nice. It does. You might have to raise this side a little bit. Looks like I do. So that looks pretty good. Where it turns into 3 right here, I'll weave a little bit, and then where it turns into 3, okay? So from here, I'm just making some decorative wraps. Just to save time and not tie on any fresh wire or break off any wire. Just going to dive through the hinge with this last wrap right here. And then I'll start wrapping on this side. Make a few of them until I get to the place where I can attach right there. Try to make it look similar to the other side. Sometimes it takes getting your plier in there. Help you squeeze them together. That's about right. Make it similar to the other side. I could go one more time since I did the other side twice. Easily just end in a nice spiral right here. You know, wrap until you get here and then motion the wire on. And actually, now that I'm doing this, I love this, so I might do this. We'll just end in a cute little, maybe even hammered little spiral right there. So I'll weave a little more, I'll attach a little more until I get to about here. Well, actually, if you're going to hammer it, you should decide right here, because then you can still pull it out. So let's go ahead. If you want to do that, do this with me. We'll just do it right now. I'm just getting an idea of how much wire I need. I'm going to cut some of the excess off here. I am at the front of my pendant lid, my locket lid. And I'm going to get my round nose pliers now. And right here, just take it and hold the curve. Do a nice spiral inward. I just grab the heck out of that tip and turn it because I always intend to snip that little tiny tip off. And then I can kind of stash it over all that messy business I had right there, and that looks actually quite good. So I'm going to hammer it real quick. If you have a munchy tip like mine, just take your very sharp cutters, get in there, sacrifice very tip of that. That should still be beautiful. You could even take your plier and shape it a little bit. Just work extra careful if you do that. Okay, and now to get it turned out for hammering, all I have to do is kind of pull it out this way. That's why you don't want to tie it too much, just enough so that you can reach it. And I'll take it off to my bench block, give it a quick hammer. I know it's hard to see, but I'm just going to hammer the curve real quick. Just like that. You could sand that if you want, and then carefully work it back down to its place and lay it into place. That's beautiful. I'm doing that. Okay, and so now we'll just continue to weave until you get to here and weave it on. And this is pretty much it. I'm going to tie it into this coil, and then we'll attach it to our basket and see how it looks. You're also going to check for any kind of little straggly wires here at the base of the tree. And like I said, if you didn't do yours as thick as mine, there shouldn't be too much there. Okay, but you can just check them and trim them out if you need to. Make sure your spiral is laying down. You can do that by just gentle plier pressure to shape this lid. Go around and make sure everything's level. You're not killing it. You're just giving loving taps, giving your lid kind of a downward slope. And now we're going to turn this guy. So right here, we'll make sure he's level. You're just going to brace right here. Give a 90-degree turn. Turn it down. And then the tip of it, turn up slightly. And you'll have to fiddle, when you make your basket, the position to fit that thing. So that turned out beautifully. So here's the lid to our beautiful next locket basket. And I'm just going to clean up a few of these stragglies a little bit, and then I'm going to make a basket to fit this frame. Okay, so welcome back. Here's the little basket I made to fit my open frame. And you make this the exact same way as we did in the previous video. My basket top turned out, my locket top turned out a little bit bigger than I had planned. So keep that in mind. You might make your tree a little bit smaller. I made mine a little bit bigger, a little more open. So this ended up causing my bottom part of my locket to be 9 coils deep rather than 8 coils deep. So I had an extra coil around here. So there's fully 9 of them. If I count, from here, the tip, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I started crawling up on the 10th one to make my wall. And then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 9, and 9, and the 10th one is up here. So my 0 point was here at my cut, and if I follow that, straight down to my edge, I'm here. I can see that it's my 0 point because here's where I sloped up. Here's the bottom, and then I sloped up right here. Sorry, my basket edges were not upright, so I lost it. I sloped up right here to make number 10, and I went all the way around with number 10. So I'm going to make this one a little more shallow. Right here is where I'm going to attach my basket. Right where I'm almost back at the 0 point, and I want that 0 point where my tip comes down to be about the center of my, the center of my hinge right here. So I probably need to back off about 5 coils here, and then I'll attach to this edge. Okay, so I made 2 attachments here to give it some more stability. Put my thumb right there. I'm just going to do a lift upward. Grip it right here. I'm giving it about a couple of millimeters, and I'm just going to turn the wire down, make a little bend. I'm only giving it a couple of millimeters because I want, obviously, my hinge to fit right there nicely. And I want my basket to align with my lid. So that's pretty good. I'm going to go around one more time. I'm just going to fiddle this to make sure that that hinge, the extension, makes the hinge sit correctly. So you might have to pull it out a little bit. Make sure that all of your walls are actually upright right here at the side. You might have to turn this inward a little bit if the wall slants out. Keep in mind we're going around one more time. So just like that, that's pretty good. You just want there to be about 2 millimeters right here. Might be 3. And the same for this side now. And make sure that you're holding it so that everything is aligned properly. That your wall right here is up, so you're getting a proper measure. You're not really measuring, but so you get a proper bend. You grip it a couple of millimeters out, not very far. Just turn it down at the edge of that coil. Get about another millimeter out. Try to show it to you this way. About right here. I'm going to turn it back up. And get it aligned right next to my previous coil again. I need to make mine a little more shallow. Just work patiently. Ooh, it's pretty far off, so I'm going to take that bend out. Just redo it a little bit. That's pretty good. And then I'll go ahead and continue to coil around until I get right underneath this hinge or this clasp. And while I'm here and I'm holding everything, I'm going to go ahead and mark this spot. When I pass that with this 11th wrap, I'm going to make my little bump out right there. I'm going to continue to wrap around and end it over here. And I'm just going to bring it around so that you can see. We're going to stay on top of the previous coil. Making sure I've got enough wire to do this too. I do. And so we'll wrap until we get all the way over here again. And then we'll make our little bump for the bail. Okay? Whew, that was a lot. So get yours on there. Make sure that it sits nicely. Get your wire positioned so that you can be on top over here. And then continue to coil until you get to here and stop. Alright, so I've weaved my wall number 11 and I got up to my mark here. I'm going to close my basket, make sure that everything is sitting nice. I think this looks pretty good, and we can always go back and make little tweaks and such. The hinge looks good. This side will look cleaner once we finish weaving up to there. But that all looks great. And so now I'm going to take my little bump out for my lid here. I'm going to attach and make 2 attachments right here to stabilize it. Just want to come out slightly and then over that. So put my thumb right here, make it bend out, close this, make sure my basket is sitting right. You could just cheat, kind of push over it a little bit. Make sure you keep your basket right. And on this side, take a plier and just give a little indent right there. Make sure that it works. Feels pretty okay. Feels like that's going to work out great. So I'll keep weaving. We can make adjustments to that little nose too. So I'll keep weaving until I get all the way over here. And then I'll take this little bit over the top and make a little bump out for our bail where we can attach our chain. Okay, so you can weave yours until you get to here. Just remember right here, it's a little bit tricky. Once you're all attached, you're going to make a little turn up here. Okay, so get to here and then I'll meet you right back here. Okay, so I've wrapped from here all the way to here. I've made the curve up. I'm not going into details because again, on the other video, there's a lot of details about how to build this, so that fits really nicely. There's always going to be a little bit of tweaking you got to do at the final bit of it to get it to fit exactly good. But here I'm going to wrap in as far as I can. This wire is going to end up jumping over the hinge and making the little hook or the little bar that we can take our chain to. So I'll just use this open space and wrap into there as closely as I can, making some more single wraps right here. And then from the inside, just going to pass right through underneath the hinge right here, and I'll lock all that down nice and cleanly. I'll go twice. We're almost done, you guys. This one was another big project. Well, it was just the lid, but if you made a new basket, then it's a whole nother new project. So I've got some little tree straggles right here I'll just get rid of on the inside. Pinch all that down. I'm going to work with that hinge closed, that clasp closed. If you want to coil this whole thing across, you can. I'm not going to. I'm probably just going to end my wire actually back here, a little cleaner. And I'll just reattach it again on the other side. Okay, so right here you're just going to make a little curve over. Not a big one, just enough to get 2 little jump rings on. So open this up. Just stay level. It's a little bit hard to do, but not really. Just try to make a U shape with that bit there. And then once you get the shape that you like, we can just cut it off and end it right there. So just make this as even as you can. I try to look from the back. It helps me to stay even. And then right here, I'll cut it, leaving just a few millimeter, 3 or 4, whatever you're comfortable with. Take some very fine pliers. You just turn that end right down into the space of that hinge so that it locks down there. Okay, so I've got 3 and 3 coils on each side plus the top lid. I'm going to put my lid together. That looks pretty good, you guys. You can take some flat nose pliers or your nylon jaw and just come around. I did the lid in 26 gauge and I did the basket in 28 gauge. So the lid looks a little bit thicker. It looks really good, so you can do it in 26 gauge or even mix them for different texture. But sometimes you need to go through and just level everything out. So take your nylon jaw and just give pressure, a nice handshake squeeze to all of this. If you used my earring tutorial and made these little tree medallions, then what we can do is take one, or you can just make another one, you know, whatever size you want. This one's a little bit smaller. That's why this tutorial took a little bit longer, because my basket got a little, the whole thing got a little bigger than the first one. But I'm going to go ahead and sew this one in here. Just lock it down in there. So I'll go ahead and just tack this tree down in a couple of spots to hold it in here. All I did was pass the wire through to the back, and again I showed you how to do this in the first video, so I'll only show this one tie. But you get the idea that you can pretty much go in and out of the back. To keep this tree in. And then I can just break them off in the back. Nothing shows, and it looks really nice. Okay, so you can go ahead and go through yours and just put your ties on and whatever else you want to do in here. And then when you close your locket, what you get are two beautiful trees showing through each other. I hope you enjoyed that. I think it turned out beautifully. And when you open it up, the other little tree surprise you have inside is the Tree of Life medallion. And then of course, the Tree of Knowledge could be the one on top. Twin trees. Alright, so make your magic on yours, you know, add some bead balls and do some other wonderful things with your lockets, and let me know how you're feeling. Give me thumbs up, let me have comments and any suggestions that you have. So we'll see you again next time, you guys. Tons of love.